Welcome to San Joaquin College of Law Today, a show dedicated to issues and events within the law school which are of general interest as well. SJCL Today is produced by San Joaquin College of Law, a nonprofit law school in Clovis, founded in 1969 to provide quality legal education. Over 88% of its graduates have passed the California bar examination. More than a quarter of the practicing lawyers in the Fresno area are San Joaquin College of Law graduates. We begin our program with this year's commencement address to the class of 2012 at the Saroyan Theatre. U.S. District Judge Lawrence O'Neill is introduced by San Joaquin College of Law professor and Fresno Superior Court Judge Hilary Chittick.
I have known Judge O'Neill probably longer than most of you because he and I went to law school together. He was the nerdy guy sitting in the front row taking notes, and I was the person in the back row doing what those of you who are just graduating know people in the back row do. We went on and went our separate ways, and Larry became a distinguished attorney at McCormick Barstow, and then a judge on the Fresno Superior Court, and then a magistrate judge in the United States District Court, and finally an Article III judge in the District Court. And they told me when I did this introduction I needed to do something funny. And being not a person who's very funny, I had lunch with my good friend Stan Boone and my good friend John Conklin, who some of you may know are quite funny. They didn't have one funny thing to tell me about Judge O'Neill. So I was a little worried, and so I decided I'd go straight to the horse's mouth and ask Judge O'Neill. And so he sent me an email with his CV that contained all the funny things he could think of. So I do have some materials. And I just wanted to say, in reviewing this CV, it is incredibly diverse. He has lectured on everything from expert witnesses to gender issues in the legal profession. It's clear from this the importance of family to Larry. And he has one particular speech that I thought was particularly apropos called Disastrous Comments. And I'm very confident that today you're not going to be hearing any disastrous comments from our very own district court judge, the Honorable Lawrence O'Neill. Larry.
Until now, I did not realize that I was viewed as a nerd in law school. Before I even give my hellos to the dean, I just want to make a comment about your valedictorian. A perfect grade in wills and trusts. Now I can die. "200 years ago, Alexander Hamilton, in Federalist Paper number 78, said that the judiciary would prove to be the least dangerous branch of government. This explains why I have been asked to give this speech. Darren Stemwedel, who is one of your graduates, he and I are related by marriage, and he's the one who asked me to speak. So if you don't like it, see him. Law school graduation is quite a day. Those of us who have graduated and those of you who are graduating today never will forget the moment. There was a University of Law professor from the University of Virginia who summed it up, in my view, pretty well when she said to the graduating class, quote, "Just a short time ago in your first year of law school, when asked a legal question, you could answer in all honesty, 'I don't know.' Now, you can say with great authority, 'It depends.'" Frankly, in a way, as I look at this captive audience, I'm reminded of the true story of a lawyer, Melvin Belli. He's a famous tort lawyer from San Francisco, now deceased, but he was asked to go out and give a speech to the inmates at San Quentin. And he was told immediately that there was no money to pay him, kind of like this now. And the warden of the prison said, there's only one thing I can give you, and that is a guarantee of 100% attendance. Perhaps some of you had some type of a reservation of having me speak, since you have heard the ugly rumor that federal judges have huge egos. So what's ugly about it? I think that generally speaking, most graduates of law school want three things from the keynote speaker. One, anything other than more law. Two, an insight that will make the bar exam easier. And three, a perspective that will refresh your zest and your love for life. I promise not to cite more law to you. Before coming out here, when telling Professor Purvis that I was not going to give you any more law, he gave me this look that only a first-year law student can give of, what are you saying? The truth is that professors like Professor Purvis have given you all the law you'll need for the bar exam. They have given you so much of who they are. Go in confidently. Study confidently. You'll do just fine. As far as helping you with the bar exam is concerned, I think that you can just ask my daughter, who's here. 2 years ago, she and her then fiance, now husband, studied at our house for the bar exam for the summer 2 years ago, as I said. It was the worst summer of my life. It would have been easier for me to take the bar exams again than to watch that. No parent, and I'm now talking to the parents, no parent will ever think that the student is studying hard enough. And then when they drive in from the bar exam and you're looking for a sign of how did you do, and your daughter's head is against the dashboard, and as you finally get her to hold up her head, she says, I'm going to be taking that again, giving you heart palpitations for the next 3 months as you wait, and then finding out that she did so well that they asked her to grade the bar exam the next year. All I can tell you, folks, I'm glad it's you this year. As human beings, we often take our own situation and make ourselves feel better by seeing someone else having a tougher time. I'll give you one quick bar exam story that ought to make you graduates euphoric. On the third day of the bar exam, when I took it, I took the bar exam at the University of California at Bolt in Berkeley. And I got there early because you're always afraid your car is going to break down and you won't get there in time. So I got there early, and I was walking down toward the classroom, and I saw a guy that was particularly not well dressed, not shaven, long hair. Well, I'm a Berkeley undergrad, it didn't surprise me. But as we got closer, there was something about his eyes that I recognized. Now, for some of you who know me well, you know that before I went to law school, I was a police officer in the Bay Area. And I recognized those eyes as being an Oakland police officer. And I said, Jonathan, is that you? And he said, yeah. And I said, what in the world are you doing here? And I said, you're either not a police officer anymore or you're in Vice. And he said, I'm in Vice. And I said, well, what are you doing here? And he said, well, one of your bar takers put himself through law school selling drugs. And instead of thinking about the drugs, the sales, the money, the wrong of that, I said, don't arrest him till noon. And he said, noon? And I said, if he doesn't finish the bar exam, he has to start the whole thing over. And I got a big smile, and he said, no kidding. It can't get that bad, folks. You'll be just fine. For today's real message, I have chosen to share a true story about a San Joaquin College of the Law student who was in the first class that I taught at this law school in 1988. His name was Sam Speak. And Jan, I know you remember him. On the day he was graduated from San Joaquin College of Law, it was his 70th birthday. Sam used to come to class every night in a suit and tie. He had an air about him that was confident, but always respectful, polite in every way. He was an old-fashioned gentleman. And about a third of the way through the semester, I got to know him well enough to find out who this person really was. I was more than curious about why somebody would start law school so late in life, knowing that they weren't going to be graduating until age 70. And I had this deep feeling as I got to know Sam better and better, that Sam had something to teach me rather than the other way around. I borrow that phrase that I like so much: if you want to know what's down the road, ask someone who's coming back. And Sam was coming back from a lot of the road. He had been an accountant his entire life, and he had done quite well, both in establishing a wonderful reputation and also establishing a nice financial portfolio. Upon his graduation from San Joaquin College of Law, Sam went out to juvenile court, where he spent 10 full years every single day representing juveniles who had been abused physically, emotionally, or sexually. For 2 of those years that Sam was out there, I was the presiding judge of the juvenile court. So I knew what Sam was doing, and I knew how difficult what he was doing was. And I also knew what a great job he was doing. Not long before Sam died at age 80, he was still working out at the court, and he and I had lunch together. And I asked him, "Sam, when are you going to hang it up? When are you going to stop working?" And I loved his answer, as evidenced by the fact that I still remember it, and I'm relaying it to you now. Sam gave me that signature warm and kind smile and said, "Judge, I did stop working 10 years ago. This law thing is just plain fun." We hear so much these days about the rancor and the unpleasantness of law practice. But I'm as convinced now as I ever was that we only hear that from those who have forgotten the feeling that they had on the day they graduated from law school. That same feeling of excitement and relief and anticipation and joy and gratitude that's bundled all up inside of each one of you graduates here now. So what's the trick to preserve the Sam Speak perspective? It's to be found in the qualities that exist in each of us, and certainly existed in Sam. Qualities that must be cultivated to remain viable and vibrant. They're the qualities of honor, the knowledge of caring for and about humanity. The pursuit of happiness and the pursuit of money require different roads and different road maps. That does not mean that you have to be poor to be happy. It means that if you pursue decency and justice, no matter what the cost, everything else falls into line, all by itself. At my stage of life, I have helped a number of family members and close friends and judicial colleagues face their last days on this earth. And I will tell you that the absence of topics like money and prestige and materiality and position and power was deafening. Without exception, The most treasured, reflective moments dealt with relationships that required serious sharing and the giving of oneself. You need to understand that knowing that you have given your best efforts counts in an enormous way, no matter what else anyone else does around you. That's their choice. You have your own to make. In that vein, I'm reminded of a true story that my mother told me about her father, my grandfather. My mother was 5 years old when this happened, and she used to tell this story as though it had happened the day before. My mother, her sister, and her parents lived in Wailuku, Maui, Hawaii, which is where my grandfather practiced law and my mother was born. It happened that there was a sailor, the United States Navy, stationed at Pearl Harbor, and he was accused of murder. My grandfather believed that young man to be innocent. He knew that he was broke, but he still knew in his heart of hearts that he was innocent and he needed good representation. So my grandfather took on the case for nothing, pro bono. The case went to trial in the courthouse in Honolulu, and the jury returned a verdict of not guilty. My grandfather had done his best work. At the end of that day, he shook the young man's hand, wished him well, and never expected to see him again. About a year later, my mother and her sister and their parents, my grandparents, were sitting in their home eating dinner when the doorbell rang. My grandfather got up from the dinner table and went and answered the door. And there stood this sailor. And he announced to my grandfather that he was being shipped out. He was being transferred from Pearl Harbor, and he was leaving the next day. He said that he had always been sorry that he had not had any money to give my grandfather for his legal services. And so he brought with him the only thing that he had that was of any value to give to my grandfather. It was the gun that he had killed the guy with. Needless to say, this was not a good day for my grandfather, who had believed in his client. In the practice of law, just like in life, things don't always turn out the way you plan. But whether they do or they do not, you need to take great solace in knowing that you gave it your best in every circumstance. My mother never forgot what my grandfather said at the table as he sat back down after this sailor had left. I did the best job I could. It's unfortunate that all clients don't. But understand that that's part of what you will be as a lawyer. You need to set your own standards of ethics, of honor, of hard work. Nobody around you sets them for you. You have to be able to laugh at yourself, folks, because things will happen. And sometimes it is a bit of a human comedy. A few years ago, I was sentencing somebody who was hell-bent on telling me all of the reasons he had committed this crime. And they really got ridiculous. And finally, getting a bit impatient, I leaned forward and I said to this man, "Do I look stupid?" And before he could even think, he said, "Actually, you do." You know, you've got to laugh at yourself, although I must admit, I've never asked the question again. Also, always know to whom you speak. When I was appointed to the Superior Court, I was 37 years old and looked like I was about 30. And one day, when I first got to the court, they were working on the 7th floor courtrooms. They weren't finished yet. So I was in a courtroom that was about a block away from the courthouse. And it was a dumpy building. It's now gone. But it was nothing that anybody would look at and think that's a courtroom or a courthouse. So I had come out of my chambers. It was an informal area, frankly. And my clerk was not there at her desk, but I was flipping through papers because I wanted to make sure that this civil law in motion calendar I was caught up with everything that had been filed. And while I was flipping through these documents for this civil law in motion calendar, a lawyer walked up to me and he said, quote unquote, "Do you know where the hell the courtroom is?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, yes, you just keep winding around to the right. Eventually you'll come around and there will be a big door, and that is the courtroom. You won't be able to miss it." And he started to turn, and then he turned back to me and he said, "Do you know anything about this judge?" "Know to whom you are speaking." And I said, "Well, yeah. What do you want to know?" And he said, "What's he like?" And I said, "He's brilliant." And that guy turned around to me and said, "That's too bad. I needed a stupid one to grant my motion." Well, I went back into my chambers as he went around and found the courtroom, and I got into my robes. He was number 7 on calendar, but I just couldn't wait. As I walked in with the bailiff giving the all rise sign, I looked out there in the flood of lawyers, and I could tell, I could pick him out quickly. He was the one with his mouth open. And I called his case first. Now keep in mind, he's the only one that knew about our conversation. The other lawyer, of course, did not. So I called the case and I asked for their appearances. They gave me who they were and who they represented. And I looked at the person whose motion it was, who had had this quick conversation with me, and I said, "Mr. So-and-so, you were right." Now, he knew what I meant. He knew that he didn't get a stupid one that was going to grant his motion. But the other side, who thought it really was a stupid motion, thought I was telling him that his motion was right. He started fidgeting, going back and forth I thought he was going to have a heart attack. And I said, "Sir, is there anything else you want to tell me other than what you've told me?" And everybody else in the courtroom is thinking he didn't tell you anything. And he said, "No, Your Honor, I think I've said quite enough." And I ruled. And I said, "Your motion is denied." Now the other side gets up. He'd been around long enough to know that you should not argue with somebody when you have just won the motion. But I think that he is still walking toward the back of the door, looking back at me, figuring, what just happened? The bottom line is, always know to whom you are speaking. Graduates, we all know that our nation is in the midst of a time of decaying spirit. We seem to be divided by war, nuclear threat, racial conflicts, religious intolerance, and also, just as of this morning's paper, funding of the courts, religious intolerance, the alienation of its youth, air and water pollution, and on and on and on. We stand on the sidelines watching our politicians settle into a comfort zone of uncivil discourse. The law, including canon law, hold a front and a center seat in such disputes. That's where you're coming in. You are now in a position to influence by example, to live the personal sacrifice necessary for a national commitment to excellence, to cast aside personal pleasures and personal concerns, and instead to pour relentless energy into necessary collective endeavors, and to transform a people into a citizenry and a territory into a nation. I suggest to you that a sense of vocation will reassure a national recapturing of our spirit. It's the sense of doing the best you can in everything you do. When the concepts of duty and honor and patriotism and respect for authority and generosity, gratitude and devotion to God are held to be outmoded, irrelevant and politically incorrect, the national spirit, as well as the individual spirit, are destined to be lost. Never be discouraged by the pessimists. There is no shortage of those types of people. With regard to that, I'm reminded of a speech that President John Kennedy did not give. It's from the speech that he was to give at lunch on the day in 1963 that he was assassinated. It was a speech that was found on the podium that he was minutes away from approaching to give this speech. That was found by a janitor who was cleaning up after everyone in shock left that ballroom that day. That speech included the following statement, quote, "There will always be voices in the land expressing opposition without alternatives, finding fault but never favor, perceiving gloom on every side and seeking influence without responsibility." End of quote. Little has changed since then, but the solution is not to allow people to tell you why something cannot be done, but rather how something can be done. It starts with you. So my words to you today need not be complex, but the concept needs to be remembered. Work hard, speak the truth, laugh, love, express gratitude, and know that in your lifetime, very few people will remember exactly what you said to them, but they will always remember how you said it to them. I congratulate you today on this occasion of your Sam Speak retirement. Now go forward and have fun in the practice of law.
San Joaquin College of Law has 2 free legal clinics operated by students and overseen by faculty members. SJCL students are doing groundbreaking work in non-adversarial property division agreements and divorces in the mediation clinic. Clients meet with a student to work out a marital settlement agreement, which can then be filed with the court. The New American Legal Clinic assists legal immigrants in obtaining citizenship, working through the processes of naturalization. The Now Clinic also assists those seeking family-based immigrant visas or U visas, depending upon eligibility.
Hi, I'm Justin Atkinson, and we're here at San Joaquin College of Law in Clovis, California. Today we're coming to talk to you about the New American Legal Clinic here at the San Joaquin College of Law. It's a brand new clinic that we've started working with immigration matters. And I have with me today Professor Jessica Smith Bobadilla. She'll be talking about some immigration matters with us today, and she helps us in the clinic as a clinical professor. A little bit of history of the immigration clinic is that last year we wanted to offer our students some clinical experience, and we thought, how could we do that? And there were some different options that we were discussing, and but one kind of stood out, and that was an immigration law clinic. And I'll tell you why. There's a lot of immigrants here in this area, many immigrants, and there are not a lot of practitioners that actually practice immigration law. So what happens is that a person needing immigration assistance needs to get that immigration assistance someplace. And so what happens is people, maybe unscrupulous people, step up and provide services that really aren't qualified to do so. And a lot of fraud happens. And one thing that we really looked at was that the Department of Homeland Security indicated that Fresno was one of seven cities that had the most fraud perpetrated in the immigration area. And so the purpose of the clinic is twofold. Number one is to provide services to people here in the area, competent services, and number two is to train students at the law school to go out and provide those services as well. That's the history of the clinic. It started last January, and we've had some great success, thanks greatly to Professor Jessica Smith Bobadilla, who's really helped us out. Some of the issues that we've seen, we've had a lot of students come in that have been brought here when they were very young, and by kind of no fault of their own, been brought here, have gone through school, have been relatively, I shouldn't say relatively, have been very good students, very good kids that find themselves in a circumstance right now that they can't get work, they can't continue with schooling, just because that they don't have the proper paperwork, they haven't become U.S. citizens. We'd like to talk a little bit today about kind of the DREAM Act a little bit, as well as a pronouncement that the President has come out with regarding those types of students. And I think Jessica, if you could introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about your practice and kind of what you're doing. And
yes, thank you, Professor Atkinson. My name is Jessica Smith Bobadilla. I'm a professor here at San Joaquin College of Law in the New American Legal Clinic. I've practiced immigration law privately for 10 years in different places, in different capacities, in courts throughout the United States and before the Department of Homeland Security, including USCIS and ICE, which is Immigration Customs Enforcement, USCIS being Citizenship and Immigration Services. I have been practicing in Fresno since 2004, when I worked for another practitioner and then started my own practice. I have second offices in LA and San Francisco due to my heavy representation of people in court proceedings. Unfortunately, we don't have an immigration court close to home in the Valley. I've been very involved with students since I came back to the Central Valley, which is my home. I'm from Fresno originally, and I was shocked at the numbers of students that were brought here at 2 or that didn't even know that they had been born in another country that are present in the Valley. And there's some of truly the best and the brightest students in our high schools, in our local universities, that could be potentially entering the workforce, creating jobs, all of that. The executive order by the President on June 15th, 2012 was followed by multiple attempts to get different types of legislation through Congress that might give these students some protection and or ability to work after they complete their studies. I mentor and know several students that are now in master's or PhD programs that before this action wouldn't have had a chance to go get a job, even holding sometimes PhDs from Ivy League schools or master's degrees from schools like Fresno State, UCLA, other schools in California. So the requirements, so on Friday, June 15th, 2012, the White House announced that President Obama had defined a path for deferred action, which is not a form of legal residency or citizenship, but it is basically an agreement that the administration or the government will not deport those individuals that meet this certain criteria. And in addition, the order specified that they would be given work authorization or work permits for a period of 2 years. The requirements that were defined on June 15th were that individuals between the ages of 16 and 30 at the time of application could apply. They had to have been in the United States by the time they were 16 years old, and they had to prove 5 years of continuous physical presence prior to the date of their application. In addition, there are certain requirements that, of course, criminal convictions are an issue. Even minor infractions, if multiple, can be an issue under this order. And the people that qualify would also have to either be currently enrolled in high school, they'd have to have a high school diploma or a GED, a general education certificate, or they would have had to have been honorably discharged from a military branch of service in order to qualify. We think it's especially significant to Fresno and the Central Valley, all of the valley, because there were several prominent, significant dreamers, as we call them, or students, immigrant students, that really took the lead on this issue nationally. And when pieces of legislation were introduced before Congress, often the footage that major outlets like Fox News, ABC News would use came from Fresno State and from different gatherings where these students got together and held forums to try to address these issues. So for those of us that represent immigrants or are concerned about immigration issues, it's definitely something that benefits a lot of deserving students. And through the clinic, we're hoping to actually assist a broader group of people than just students. Our focus is often people that have been victims of domestic violence, women living in shelters with small children. Often the children are U.S. citizens, and to try to address some of the most sympathetic cases for the people with the least resources.
I'm not surprised anymore when someone walks into our clinic and says that they have a legal path to citizenship, or they want to bring somebody who legally can become a legal permanent resident or a citizen. And they tell me, they say, look, I gave money to a certain person and that money's gone now and I don't know what to do. It happens a lot. And so we're trying to help those people that have a legal path to citizenship, those that are the most deserving and that are underrepresented in our community. And that's what we're attempting to do, and we hope to continue to do that. Thank you for listening to us. I'm Professor Justin Atkinson. This is Professor Jessica Bobadilla. Thank you.
Thank you.
The success of San Joaquin College of Law is both measured and reflected by the success of its alumni. Among the more than 1,300 graduates are 24 judges and court commissioners, the Fresno, Tulare, and Madera County District Attorneys, the California Health and Human Services Secretary, and practitioners in every area of public and private service. We're pleased to offer this portion of San Joaquin College of Law today to a member of that alumni rank.
Good afternoon. My name is David Mugridge. I am a 1985 graduate of San Joaquin College of Law, and presently I am a professor of advanced legal research and writing at San Joaquin College of Law. My practice is mostly in Fresno County, and I do mostly criminal defense. And I'm here today to comment on a huge impact that the citizens of the county of Fresno that are familiar with our court system are going to start feeling. For some time, and it's no surprise to anyone, the California budget crisis has been affecting everyone. And it doesn't make any sense that we in the judicial branch of government, that is the attorneys and the judges, should be spared the axe. And so unfortunately the governor, beginning this new financial year, has decided to cut even further from the budget that's already been cut by the judges and the staff of the Fresno County Superior Court. The projected cut this year, that is from 2012 to 2013, from that particular year, will be approximately 77% of the savings they've already saved over the years. Fresno County judges and staff at the court are very happy and proud to say they've made substantial progress in the last couple of years, really streamlining all of the work that goes into handling the cases there and trying to proceed on an orderly fashion. Unfortunately, and because they were so successful, the governor came back and in his wisdom said, "Thank you very much, we'll take the money back," and now Fresno County has to budget even further restrictions and dig even deeper into their pockets. So what's happening, and you'll see this if you are in court sometime this summer or at the beginning of the year, you're going to see the outlying courts will all be closed by the end of August. There'll be some that'll start earlier in July, but by the end of August, all of the outlying courts in Fresno County will be closed. That will leave essentially the Central District in downtown Fresno as the only operating courts in the county of Fresno. The main courthouse on Van Ness Avenue and the old federal courthouse on O Street and what we call the White House also on O Street are the only courthouses that are going to be left operating. And it is the hope that by consolidating all of their proceedings that they'll save enough money to be able to keep the courts properly and efficiently running. This year alone, from the 2012-2013 budget, we have asked our judiciary to cut their budget by 77%. And that's after following budget decreases of about 42% in 2009, 31% in 2010, and 36% in 2011. Try doing that on your budget at home and see what kind of a meal you can produce. There's no question that this is going to have a profound impact on the citizens of the county of Fresno. Those people, for example, that have small claims cases, if you live in the outlying areas like Reedley or Firebaugh or Coalinga, you're going to have to make a decision whether or not the case is important enough for you to take your time and your money and your precious gas and drive all the way down to the city of Fresno to have your small claims cases heard. Civil cases are also going to be affected generally because we're going to have a lot of cases that are brought in from the outlying courts that are going to be jammed now into the downtown courthouse. We are very fortunate that we have an extremely qualified, dedicated group of men and women on the bench in Fresno County that have been working on this for years. But it no doubt will take a lot of understanding and sympathy from the public to get along with this, to bear up with this. It's simply, hopefully, a temporary setback. Although in the future, if you're not happy with what you see, we suggest that you might want to contact the governor's office and suggest to him that perhaps the judiciary should be refunded to its previous state. And in doing so, you'll be doing yourself a favor because you'll see that with an efficient judicial system running, the other systems of government will also function smoother. We cannot continue to ask our judiciary to cut and cut and cut and still be an efficient operating governmental function as they are right now. We thank the judges who have given well beyond the amount of time that they've been paid, and we can't ask any more from them. We're asking more from the citizens now, and we're asking more from the district attorneys, from the public defenders, and all those who practice in Fresno County. Perhaps it's time now for you as a citizen of Fresno County to let your voice be heard and contact the governor's office if you're not happy with what you see coming. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of San Joaquin College of Law Today, presented by San Joaquin College of Law, a nonprofit law school committed to educational excellence and community service. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the position or views of San Joaquin College of Law. This program has been produced in conjunction with the Community Media Access Collaborative. We invite you to join us in the future as we explore issues and events within the law school which are of general interest as well. For more information about San Joaquin College of Law, please visit our website at www.sjcl.edu or call 559-323-2100.